As I said before, I would like to thank you all for being here. And before we could proceed with our agenda, it is my distinct honor to welcome our specially invited guests. Firstly, Mr. Paul Bentham, who is representing the parliamentary representative for St. George North, Ms. Tony Moore. Also, the representatives for the Ministry of Transport, Works, and Water Resources, Mr. Charles Yearwood, Senior Technical Officer for the Projects Division, and Mr. Andre Bryce, Senior Technical Officer of the Drainage Division. Now, Mr. Roger Bourne is on his way. He is the station officer on behalf of the Barbados Fire Service. Unfortunately, the representative for the District Emergency Organization is not able to make it. However, we do have Mr. Brian Murray in our midst, who is the director of the Barbados Met Office Service. I would also like to thank the media for coming and members of the St. George North, St. George South, and St. John DEOs and members of the public for coming. And other DEOs as well. Now, the primary objective for today's session is to examine findings from the Charles Rowe Bridge flooding and to identify measures to reduce the impact of future floods in the area. And with your insights, I am confident that we will make this possible. Now, to start us off, I will now invite Mr. Ricky Yard for our opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Now, first and foremost, let me just state that I've been allotted a limited time to deliver my opening remarks, so I'm not going to bore you, as we really need to get into the meat of the matter this evening. So once again, I say good evening to everyone. Protocol having been established, I do extend a warm welcome to the panel, especially invited guests, and those who are here from the Charles Rowe Bridge and surrounding communities, those who own and operate businesses in the Charles Rowe Bridge area and surrounding communities as well. I want to also extend my welcome to fellow DEO members. Thank you all for taking the time to join us this evening. Now, all of us to remember the event on Sunday, November the 16th, 2025 at Charles Rowe Bridge. I think that will be forever etched in our minds. And what started out as practically a normal day ended in tragedy for one family. Devastation in the sense of property loss and property damage for others, and disruption to human lives and businesses due to severe flooding in the area. During that flood event, a life was lost, one too many. I now ask you to stand as we observe a moment in quiet reflection for the deceased. May he rest in peace. You all can be seated. Thank you. Now, the fundamental goal of this meeting is to, one, present the key findings from a District Emergency Organization walkthrough of the Charles Rowe Bridge community. And this was done exactly 1 week after the flood on November the 16th. Also, to hear your concerns and experiences, and that's going to be paramount this evening. Furthermore, to hear from you historical data. I know that when we were conducting our assessment, we were shared a lot of information, and I know that there's more out there. So we want to be able this evening to gather that, or those historical facts, and any local knowledge related to flood patterns and risks in the community. And furthermore, to identify and hear from the panel practical measures that can reduce the impact of future flooding in Charles Rowe Bridge and surrounding districts. And I think we're deeply honored to have with us this evening personnel from the Ministry of Transport and Works to share with us what we probably do not know yet. So through healthy conversations this evening with the panel, the agenda, we want to focus on 4 main areas. 1, a presentation which you will see shortly of the key findings of a DO impact assessment. And 2, we will hear from the respected gentlemen on the panel matters relative to drainage and infrastructural considerations. And 3, flood response and public safety. And last, number 4, disaster preparedness and risk reduction initiatives. So with that, I'm looking forward to a productive session, and you're welcome to engage the panel in a cordial manner. Again, I thank you all for joining us, and let's make the most of our time. At this point, I'll turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Mr. Ricky Yard, the chairman of the St. George North DO, will now give an overview of the November the 16th, 2025 flood event. Mr. Ricky, you have your attention.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair, and thank you. All right, so what you would have heard mentioned is we are going to be presenting our findings, which was conducted exactly 1 week after the flooding. So to set the tone and to lead directly into that, I just want to quickly give a short overview as a reminder on what actually happened on that day. Okay, so on Sunday, November the 16th, 2025, following flash flood watches and a flash flood warning from the Barbados Meteorological Services, the northern districts experienced intense rainfall. Actually, 5.5 inches was recorded, with an additional 1 to 3 inches forecast. That produced rapid runoffs and flash flooding in low-lying areas, including the Charles Rowe Bridge and Salters community. I'm just going to go through chronological details as the incidents unfolded. It was around 3 p.m. on that said afternoon that a flood warning was issued for northern districts with a high possibility of severe flooding. Around 6 p.m., flood warnings reaffirmed rainfall accumulation of 5.5 inches with 1 to 3 inches expected. Charles Rowe Bridge was identified as at risk. At 8:31, Sunday, November the 16th, the District Emergency Organization would have received its first call. And that was to report to us that there was a person who was trapped in a vehicle with a child in the flood waters, just in the area of Shafek. And furthermore, that there was a vulnerable person, an amputee, who was also trapped in her home and required evacuation. Shortly after, 8:45 to be exact, a team headed by myself, accompanied with 4 other DO persons. We arrived at Charles Rowe Bridge, and what we did then was to conduct a rapid assessment and coordinated with the Barbados Fire Service. The response actions taken were the St. George North DO mobilized volunteers, and as I said before, myself included, a member from the road clearance team, a member from shelter, and a first aid officer to support on-site operations, communications, and navigation. The Barbados Fire Service, with the support from the Barbados Defense Force, the Barbados Coast Guard, and the roving response team, led search and rescue and evacuation tasks. The Barbados Police Service drone unit conducted aerial reconnaissance to support search and rescue. Evacuation of a vulnerable amputee was coordinated and completed by the Barbados Fire Service in collaboration with the Barbados Roving Response Team support. Community members and the Barbados Fire Service assisted in water removal from the severely flooded, damaged residents, and an initial damage assessment was scheduled for the following day, November the 17th, 2025. Casualties and damage. Reports indicated one male, and this is what we learned upon arrival, was swept away during the flood, and a search operation was planned and carried out. One vehicle with female, which I alluded to earlier, and child was reported trapped in floodwaters during initial calls. And one residence, sustained severe water damage. Household losses were reported by the homeowner. We also noticed that debris and damaged vehicles were extensive, and several roads rendered impassable during peak flooding. And what I can tell you at that point in time, the current status indicated that immediate life-saving operations were undertaken and evacuations for identified vulnerable persons completed. And the search and rescue effort went on to the late hours into the night, but had to be abandoned due to the weather conditions. An initial damage assessment was initiated on November the 17th, 25. And this serves, ladies, gentlemen, panel, as a brief reminder of the grim occurrence in Charlesville Bridge on November the 16th. So at this point, we are going to present to you our findings, which was conducted exactly 1 week after when we went into the community and had conversations with some of the residents, their business owners, and so forth. What we were told and what we ourselves saw, all right, and some of it, when you see those photos, I think it's like a horror story. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I now turn you over to my Deputy Chair, Mr. Mark Bryan, to present the findings. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, thank you all for coming out. I always say that this is our community, and we need to show an interest in our community, because from time to time, things will impact us, and we need to know how best to respond, how best to support each other, and so on. Let me just see if this mouse will work from here. Oh, yes, it will. Good. So I just wanted to start off with a broad map of roughly the St. George North area. Yeah, okay, so much more comfortable. Thanks, James. Right, so as I said, I just wanted to point out, this is generally the St. George North area. Maybe missing one or two communities, so if yours is not there, it's not intentional. But essentially, this is the impacted area that we're going to be looking at. One of the things that we as a DEO have been trying to do is to locate some of the critical infrastructure throughout the community. And we have basically indicated wells that are located in the particular area that has been impacted. Just for reference, this is where we are. This is the gas station down here. And these are wells in the area. And essentially, this is pretty much the impacted area. This is what greeted me when I was returning home on that fateful night. Yes, I did hold the phone on my dashboard while I was driving, and this is what the real experience looked like from a motorist perspective. And as you can see, the water is building, and I think this was sometime around 6:30. This was not even late into the flooding itself. As you can see, the gas station area is beginning to flood. And we'll talk about those grills across the front of the gas station in a little while. As you can see on the right, the water is already rising quite high, and I do believe quite a number of motorists actually had to turn around and find another route to their destination. Right. So, as the chairman said, we took a walk through what essentially is what became the water course 1 week after, and we started in this area. This is, I don't know how many of you may know the red shop. It's called Gibson's, affectionately referred to as Gibson's shop, which is just down the hill here, where people usually sell bread at night. So this is across from that shop. And we walked this course because that's where we understand a lot of the water came down. So on the map, this is roughly where we are, and we are targeting, looking at what has happened to the well in that area. So we started up at the top of the path, and this is shows quite significant erosion with quite a number of trees being felled. This is a better view of some of the erosion that has taken place. And this is probably about 5 or 6 feet of soil that has essentially been washed away. Let me see if I can use this. Yeah. Again, this is some of the, you can see some boulders and trees and so on that have been blocked in the path of the raging waters. And further down, we can see a lot of, I call it marl, that has been washed down from wherever. And you can see that clearly a lot of this is new to the area. And even though this is but a short slide, a short portion of it, it pretty much lined most of the path all the way down towards the entrance that I showed you at the beginning. This is Mr. King, this is one of the residents that we spoke to, and he pretty much described the event for us as it impacted him, with lots of soil being washed away, a lot of his garden washed away, quite a bit of debris, as you can see here, landed in his yard. Sorry, so this is, where are we? This is, sorry, I thought someone was asking something. So this is next, on the right of the gas station and the hardware store. There's a little opening there. There's an unpaved road that leads up behind these houses here. Yes, correct. That's at Skull Exchange. Okay, great. Right, so this is his house. His house is the one that if you stand by the hardware store and look up that gap, you can see his house. Yeah. Right, so this is looking up the gap now, and that's his house in the background up here. And I took this picture to show, well, some of this marl, I believe, had been deposited there by the Ministry of Transport and Works to try to make the ground a little bit more solid for residents in that area. But as you can see, the well had been impacted significantly, where it is quite a significant blockage from the debris that has been washed down. This is a closer view of it. And as you can see, at some point in time, no water was going into that well, but accumulating in the area of the gas station. So this is essentially the well that we were just looking at. And again, this is Gibson's shop. So now we are going to look at the area behind Gibson's shop. Sorry, so one of the things that we learned as we spoke to residents in the area is that the previous path that we were talking about just now, they had never seen water come through there like that before. And certainly is a situation that needs to be investigated as to the reasons why that volume of water came down that track. So this is behind Gibson's shop. There is a well here, and there's quite a, let's call it a water course that had been cut out that leads to this well. And I'll show you a better picture, but you can see once again that the well has significant blockage, and those are no small limbs. Those are large tree limbs that had washed down, blocked the entrance to the well. And my understanding from the residents in the area and people who witnessed it, that this burn was overtopped with water. And so as you can see, that is quite high. If I stand in that, it's over the top of my head. So that's no small amount of water. And again, because of the blockage caused by the debris and so on, a lot of water did not go into the well. Perhaps the well was already full of debris, so that's something that needs to be looked into. And this is the same well, but looking in the opposite direction, looking up the water course itself. Again, looking further up, you can see that even far away from the well, quite a bit of debris was being collected, or collected around these trees, but some of it made its way down to the well and perhaps over that as well. Next, we look at the area around the gas station. And this is a picture that I don't really want to see again. All right, the only time I ever see it is looking back in history, because we definitely need to do something about that. As you can see, the water is pretty much halfway up the pumps themselves, which means that pretty much everything in that area was underwater. You cannot even see the grills that are meant to channel the water away once it comes down. And this is the reason why. That's one of the grills in front of the gas station. It is probably, in my humble estimation, 90% full, which means that water, instead of going into that grill, into the drain, and through the course that was designed to take that water, that just was not happening because the drains were already full. And may I suggest that this is one area that we may need to have special attention paid to and have it flushed perhaps just before the hurricane season, just to make sure it's clear that it can take away the water. So that drain leads to this channel that lies between the Bridge Supermarket and the house at the back. And this is what that drain looks like. And even though the drain is there, I suspect it would not have made a lot of difference, because if you look here, you can see that all of that is debris that had washed across the car park at the Bridge Supermarket, pushing down the fence and making its way wherever. And then we move over to the area by Chafet. And as you can see, it used to be in pretty good condition. Sorry? So we also visited the back of the small hardware store. And this is what met us. So we are now looking up the drain from the opposite end. And if you look at the fence, you can see that here, that fence is a 5-foot fence. And On average, I would say it's about 4.5 feet up the fence where debris is collecting. That tells you the height and volume of water that passed through that area. And once again, the story of blocked wells. I believe some work had started immediately following the flood, but not all of it could be, well, a little bit too late because the damage had already been done. This was intended to show what, I'm not an engineer by the way, so I don't claim to be, but I think this is something that perhaps needs to be looked at because this is a pretty big drain. However, they're just two small tunnels to take the water away. And once those become overwhelmed, then it can be expected that the height of the water will grow. And we know from witnesses and the videos we've seen circulating, this is actually the bridge where the lady was stuck in her car. And you can see the height above the drain itself. And this is what outside to the left of Shafet looks like, where quite a bit of earth and soil and rocks and so on was simply washed away. The retaining wall was pushed down and eventually inundated this home where the bottom floor had at least 4 feet of water and the person staying there actually had to be rescued. So this is a shot of that area. And as you can see, quite a bit of damage has been done. Once again, story of wells. Given the water course that we have there, I think there needs to be some relook at the size and type of well that is suitable in such a water course. As you can see, I don't have a picture of it, but when you look in there, you're looking at about 4 feet from your foot. So that well too, we know was filled. And last but by no means least, this is the, what do you call that, the outwash area, where pretty much most of the water washed down, and I understand it is believed that's where one of our residents in the community lost his life. So once again, it's a pretty tough thing to look at, and I look forward to hearing feedback from other residents in the area, other witnesses, and of course folks from the drainage unit and the fire office who can shed perhaps their view of what has happened and some of the measures that perhaps that we can take to mitigate some of this damage and so on. So with that, I will hand it back to Madam Chair. Thank you.
We're now going to have our panel discussions, and we're going to have two discussions. One is the drainage and infrastructure considerations done by the drainage unit, and the other is the flood response, rescue operations, and public safety done by the Barbados Fire Service. And to start us off, we will have one of the representatives for the Ministry of Transport and Works to do the drainage and infrastructure considerations.
Whenever we speak of disaster of any type and there's a death, it raises the concerns. The person is more aware of the risk they live. We live in a country where you have a rain and dry season. And today I want to go through my approach. My objective is really to look at what gives rise to flooding and what we can do about it and what the ministry will do with it. I'm in flood mitigation. My role is flood mitigation. Mr. Bright, the maintenance in the drainage division. For the last 17 years, we have, in terms of context of Tower Bridge, we've had about one major event every 3 years. Hello? Hello? Oh, I don't. Hello? Yeah. Last 17 years, we've had rainfall that resulted in inconvenience on the road between the shop and the culvert by Tower Bridge. There's one in every 3.5 years. Prior to that, and this is from persons who live in the area, they've never seen that kind of intensity of rain before. So why is this happening? Flooding occurs naturally from rainfall. You may get other rain from unnatural, man-made, may get break dam, or if you have large infrastructure in terms of pipes, water, massive sites, and they break, you may get that same kind of result. But this one is one of rainfall. There are two officers from the Met Office, and they can support me on this. I was speaking to one only this week, about a platform they're putting up for, in terms of rainfall and making persons aware, access to persons to have, not just about rainfall, but how much rainfall there is. So when we have, people say pitter-patter rain, and you got bucket of drop. So you can have rainfall occurring from many, not many, but a couple of reasons why you may have conventional rains, you may have a trough, you may have hurricanes. The rainfall that occurred on the 16th was the highest rainfall recorded, I've checked in the records of the Met Office. 164 millimeters or 5.5 inches in 2 hours, just about 2 hours. That's significant. If you can think about so across that rainfall, predominantly along the mid and the west section, there's a rain gauge, and that rain gauge was at Appleway. The rain gauge at the primary school, a bit less rainfall than that. So if you think of the whole the whole area that contributes to flooding at Tower Bridge, we're talking about as far up as Roach Village, Groves Junction, and we come along the road that takes to Lears, come to Bibby's Lane, all that land should come into town on your left. If you go further wide, we are looking at the road from Cottage Plantation, coming down Gun Hill. Predominantly, a lot of that land on your right now, because a very small portion of it on the right contributes to it. So quite a large area. We estimate the total area to be 1,300 hectares. 1,300 hectares. We're talking over 3,000 acres. Average lots in the region about probably 6 to 7 lots per acre. If you have the kind of rainfall across the watershed, you're looking at torrents, and it's evidenced by the pictures. It's the highest rainfall we've got, intensity rainfall. We may have had that rainfall, 5 inches, over 12 hours, over 24 hours. We may have that similar rainfall in 2 or 3 rainfall events. Now, a rainfall event measured by when the time when the rain start, different time when the rain start and finish the rainfall event. So you'll be home, you hang out your clothes, the rainfall, it starts and stops. You take your clothes, put it back out, start and stop again. There are 2 events. When we review what happened at Tower Bridge on the 16th, a couple of things come to mind. I don't want to dwell a lot on what people do, because then past experience tells me people get tight about it. But all of us, just to say that all of us travel Barbados, whether we walk, drive, ride, and our district where we live, where we travel, where we go to school, where we go for recreational, we see rainfall, we experience the flood events. Every area you travel to have a different size watershed, and some of the gullies are larger than others. When I talk about total watershed, not all of the rain that fall across that watershed came to Rowe Bridge. We have development activity taking place at the quarry at C.O. Williams. C.O. Williams quarry today in the base, in the bottom, is about 16.5 acres. They experienced 15 feet deep of water in that quarry. They had 15 feet of water deep in the quarry. So the two water courses, well, there's about 6 or 7 water courses that contribute to water here at Rowe Bridge. But along that one, you got the one at Applewoods coming along, aligning itself with Woods Village and coming through Applewoods Plantation and coming down. That's the most western one. And then the one by Bibby's Lane, that comes from Bourne's Village, right? And they both come through they run across the area what was the quarry now. But before the quarry, and the quarry didn't start and breach the water course. Over time it did it. Not being able to get from them, the managers of the quarry, when did they breach the water course. Yeah, the quarry activity go across the water courses. But there's a positive effect of a quarry on flood mitigation. Is also a concern for water quality. If the quarry is getting then deeper below the land, yeah, the 15 feet did not go close to the rim, it was contained, yeah. So we're talking about water resources. You're talking about 81 million gallons. So those persons who have lower water shut-offs and the like, sometime after a month or two after, you will get water in the Applewoods watershed. You may get some in the Bellite on the Florida Moanza. But that water contributes to the aquifer, goes to the aquifer. The concern is that as you go deeper below the ground here, and the quarry gets this level, you're getting closer to the aquifer. There's a potential pollution of the aquifer. I'm going this way because we understand the impact of flooding is just one aspect of water, one of the waters we're talking about. And the issues that we confront ourselves as we speak towards solutions, I will support at least 2 approaches later. That represents about 29% of the two water courses that bleed or convey water or divert water from coming down to Rowe Bridge, which is through the back of the tire people that comes back. That water course, you want to go from Rowe Bridge and go up behind, which you fed upstream and bend and turn and go up. Hello? Roberts, yes, Roberts. So that's 29%. 29%. About 3/10 of the land that comes to Rowe Bridge, water on that area did not come to Rowe Bridge. So we got to talk about the other 7/10 of the water course, of the watershed, that contribute to flooding on that day. Okay? So now we're dealing with the areas of flat rock. There's 2, workmen 1 and 2, and then we have walkers. Right? Ruins and flat rock. Ruins, yes. But you have ruins, I usually say ruins, and we come back to that. So those other watercourses that come to Charo Bridge, the other two we have from Robert are not there anymore. So we're talking now about the other areas that contribute the difference of the impact across the whole watershed. If we say that we have 5.5 inches across that whole area that day in 2 hours. Now let me soften up here. If Mr. Bryce and I was at a party and Mr. Catwell says, I'm going to give you 4 beers. Drink them in 2 minutes. I'm going to give Charles 4 beers. Drink them in 4 hours. That's how we relate the intensity. No way you can consume those 4 beers and say goggle and then run to the bathroom or bring them back up. I can sip my beer and probably not have an effect on me. And that's what I try to explain in terms of rainfall. We can have that same 5.5 inches in 2 hours, going to create that problem what we saw, or we can have that 5 inches over 24 hours, and you go about your business and you hardly see water on the road. The facility is able to take it, the facilities. This is in terms of drainage, so we have natural water courses. And half of the persons in here can tell us about people who block the water course, who got a fence across the water course, who dump the vegetable matter over the water course, who's doing construction and leave the mire on the road and the water going to washing the water course. We all go speak about those things. What we don't have within Barbados in some areas, and like what happened in Charo Bridgewater, across the whole watershed, the area drain water to water. We don't have the channel size and the bridges and culverts to take that kind of water you see coming at us. Okay? So I'm going to stop short here and say to you that in terms of mitigation, and this is why you talk about the quarry, wells are no longer going to be effective, in fact, are never going to be effective in that type of rainfall. And persons say, well, the wells ain't working. Our approach to wells in Barbados by engineers, and I say by engineers and by many technical people who do subdivisions, is that the presumption is that in the early, talking about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if I construct, like I say, I have an acre, my grandmother leave it for 7 children. I go put in a well, so they dig something shallow, I was doing it for kitchen. But works don't check all of them, because there's so many going across the country at the same time. But then we have small check dams that can take a bit more. Or you may have depressions across Barbados. Some people again can speak of, you look at an old map, 1950s, 59 land surveys map, and you look at what we have from mapping from LIDAR or from air photography 3 years, 4 years ago. You see a reduction in number of depressions. And what the ministry has done is to borrow from that method and start to look for the last 5 years. Construct detention ponds with wells. Because the water going to the well, if you leave it like what's happening down here in Tower Bridge with the wells with the concrete around it, the water can take what's coming at it and it's full and it can't do anything. If you create those small ponds or larger ponds around the wells, the well is full, but it's also reserve more water around it that don't go downstream, don't travel downstream. And then the well can infiltrate it to get that water after. So solution, from flood mitigation perspective, if what we saw out of the 5.5 inches of rain, and what happened with the impact, the positive impact that the Telly-vision quarry had, then we'll say that we need mini quarries or quarries across the other 7/10 of the area that don't have that facility taken off. And I want to think about it because when you look across the watershed, I'm only thinking of Francia, Moonshine, and walkers that have that kind of landmass to talk about a quarry or mini quarry. And I'm sure that many persons say that, well, I don't want quarry in my area because they don't want noise, they don't want dust. We get to a point where we have to understand this, and persons, and lastly, sorry, I should bring this one up. We talk about climate change. This is an example of, if you're on the bridge and you say, in the middle, you say, I'm not sure climate change works, or I don't believe it. If up to 70 years ago we didn't have this kind of rainfall event, but we have these regular events. In fact, in 2008, you had similar, in 2008, you had 2 significant events within a month. So it's like if you have a death, you can have a death in your family, and in one family, and you can have a brother and sister die in the same year. The same is happening. You have something that impacts you so hard you're looking for. We have to really, we are going to study the area. We are setting up for consultancy already to have it modeled. In other words, look at the rainfall and the trends. Calculate what's called a hydrological model analysis. You calculate, look at the land use. Every land use have different runoff. If you have, and again too, agriculture. How many lands we have actively working or being plowed in the area, so you have more runoff. But look at each land use, how much water comes off each area, and then that person having, the team having looked at that volume of runoff. Look at the different water courses, open spaces, what can we do to reduce it? Our options are going to be well alone. There's a traditional approach that will take frequent events, the half-inch and a 1-inch rain in an hour, maybe 2 hours. What we're seeing in 16th November, no way the approach is going to be through wells. We have to look at check dams, large escarpments, maybe enforcement quite a bit. The ministry has have a new stormwater management act that look at flood prevention before. Flood prevention is the thought we can just do something to prevent it. Comprehensive map, you look at structure and you can, what we build will work. There are other non-structural approaches, and the act does look at how people develop. People talk about the aspect of the water authority says catch water from the rain. People put up tanks contribute to reductions in flooding in small and moderate rainfall. If everyone had 300 gallons of a 400-gallon tank and taking water off the roof, and then had it on the grass or let it off slowly, yeah, drip, drip, drip as it falls per day, then that would contribute some way to small to moderate rainfalls. I want to stop there, and we can have questions later on.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to reiterate what Charles said. The event on the 16th of November, any amount of maintenance within the Rowe Bridge will not change the result on the 16th. Just want to reiterate that an event like that, well, basically the ministry is in the as Charles said, the ministry is in the process now of engaging a consultant to have these lines drawn up for the whole watershed area above Rowe Bridge. But within the short-term period, the drainage division is working to maintain the wells, cleaning the wells, drains, make sure the water courses are clear. I urge you if any issues within your area, you could call the drainage unit, have us come out to do works when necessary. I see Mr. Phillip in the course, in the seat right there. I visit with him. We have work schedule out by him as well. Just a short note on that. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I want to say from the fire department, you must understand that the rain just didn't fall in St. George. It fell the entire country. And we would have made a response to, in St. Philip, St. George, St. Michael, the entire fire service was out doing rescues that night, along with the 2 crews that would have been worked at this St. George area. So we heavily rely on, obviously, the Barbados Defense Force and you, the EOs, because the night we were trekking through the mud up to my knee, Mr. Yard was next to me, walking through the mud doing the search, when we were doing the search party for Terry. But I got a question, sir. I got a question. You talked about quarries, but what about like the artificial aquifer, that the reserve water that is in layers? Why not create, instead of creating quarries, create aquifers that can hold water that then we can use it for agricultural purposes and stuff like that going forward? There's also CQ quarry, and there's also Lower State quarry in the area that can also carry some of that load as well. There are some abandoned quarries here in St. George in the Gun Hill area, and some other abandoned quarries that I guess that we can find a way to channel the water into those abandoned quarries, because it's something that we might need to look into. The reason why I might be monitoring those quarries, because those quarries have artificial, people do illegal dumping, and then we have fires in those areas. So that's how I might know about the particular quarries. But there are quarries that can assist with the excess water from those situations, yeah? But it's up to you, because you said they never said see flooding like this before. But I remember when in 1995, there was a similar flooding in Charles River Bridge. I'm not just a fire officer, I lived in the area. And that time, there were pigs that got washed away, some animals got washed away. There weren't any deaths, no loss of life, but it was a similar situation. It might not to be this level, but obviously the road was totally impassable. And obviously the fire service and the defense force had to be engaged in order to assist persons in the area. So yes, we did have something like this before, but the water that is seen here came from, in my opinion, from person who live in the area. Others can speak on the matter. Don't just sit quiet. We're here to discuss ways of how we can help each other. I know for sure automatically the DEOs have done work in the area with the critical structures. They have also done area in terms of the vulnerable people living alone. And I know that, for instance, when we were doing the rescue down in the bridge, the DEOs, the defense force, and the police were doing rescues for vulnerable people living in the area who got scared and obviously panicked. So our focus is for the 330,000 people who live in the island. Yeah? But we were here for this particular event, and we really risked a lot, because when we walked through the water at that point in time, it was still had volume, it still had current. And understand that when you step into loom and your boots disappear right up to your up to your knees in loom, and you have difficulty walking. For those who didn't know, we walked from Chafet all the way down to what you call it, Shikalan Farm, which is approximately about 500 yards, 500 meters or more down, even passing bridge and other culverts and other areas that people would assume that his body would have stayed, but it went a whole lot further. And we employed the drones for the defense force, which obviously not just looking for the particular person, but also looking for heat signature. So even during the course of the night, they did not pick up a heat signature during the course of the night. That's why we had to rely on trekking through and looking for him. So we only discover him in the early in the morning after we carry out a secondary search. Yeah. Any questions from anyone? Just give your name and information.
So my name is Stuart Sampson. Stuart Sampson, S-T-U-A-R-T, Sampson. And I live here on this street. So the culvert, or the well as you call it, at the end here behind Gibson's shop, that is next to my house nearly, above from the gully of it. So the debris that you see in the well picture you have there is still there now. So that hasn't been cleaned 3 months later. So if you have another event, that well can't help you. And the debris that you are seeing is not washed down from anywhere. It is from the gully itself. Because the machinery and so forth that cut the trees and so forth laid it on its side. So it is now free to flow once you have enough water. So that is the trees and twigs or whatever it is that is blocking the entrance of the drain. So if you're going to clean the gully, which needs to be done with some sort of periodicity, you just can't leave it there, which is what the contractor did. So if you're the drainage unit, I would suggest that your team needs to monitor their work and come up there and watch that. And that water course has connections all the way, as you were talking about, to St. John. This is no, and so if that water course is working, it will be helpful somewhat. I mean, you talk about 5 inches in 2 hours, sure, fine. But for the 1 inch and those kind of rainfalls, that would help. But it can't help you now with that because it's still blocked 3 months on. So you've got to look at that and not only just have the contractor come, but make sure that they're doing it the right way and clearing away the debris, because all you're doing is leaving that then to block the drain. And I've lived there a long time, so I know when the water comes, I know how it works. It's Charles Rowe Bridge for a reason. It's cavernous. Under by the lady was talking about Shafet, the problem. You can go into that, but it is cavernous. And that whole water course, when you look at it from, runs beyond Warbridge. It goes all past where Western Wholesale is now, and eventually it would have connected in the old days to the Constitution into Bridgetown. Right down Station Hill, which it cannot do now because of the development. Or various other reasons, right? But anyway, that's my interjection. But you have to clean the drains and then remove the debris, not just leave it. Thank you.
Well, currently we are in the process of cleaning water courses before the hurricane season. So we are looking to having that.
Since the water coming over the road runs kind of against the wall, perpendicular, we want to know if on our side of the property, on our property, if we can have the drain, the canals run parallel, so that when the water comes over the road, it doesn't come to the wall and breaks the wall down, but it flows with the canal. So that is one of the reasons that we are concerned about. In addition to that, the well is still congested with debris, and we want to know when the well is going to be tackled. So if we can get these the answers to these questions, we really appreciate it.
I suggested for the first question that you look at your losses and you write the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Works, Transport and Works, sorry, and make your claims. I think I'm hearing from it, you're saying if they'll come and do X or Y. That has a demand on budget. I can't speak to that. But I ask you that you write the PS of public. We're going to speak before you go and give you some details, probably email address, and like write him and say, look, I'm claiming X or Y. If you have insurance, do the similar thing. If you're claiming insurance, say what you're claiming and what you would want administration to ask administration to do. Response from that. Yeah. The other one with the wall, you said a wall was, you had a wall up and it came down? It was. Oh, sorry. I'm thinking that you remember you were speaking about your property, so I thought you meant a wall on your property, but that's a wall in the drain. I am. Yeah, I'm not. Right. I think that people. Okay. The ministry is at this time. There's road works being undertaken on that road, isn't it? Or is it started already? It started, right. There's reconstruction of the road between Charrow Bridge and Lewis and the Bell Road. I think we should ask is a design and build. So the contractor and engineers work, the private and engineer and the contractor working together to get work. I think that could be what I'm saying there is not to rebuild it as it is, but look towards flood proofing. So there need to be a discussion, Mr. Holder. There need to be a discussion with you and the ministry, right? And I can start that when we're finished. I send an officer from Projects Office. I'll ask her to join us, but we can speak to you of approaches. Could we have one meeting, please? I think it might. I asked for one meeting because what I'm saying to Mr. Holder, you leave here and you have some knowledge of how you can approach some issues, not for yourself, but maybe for neighbors in your community, right? The Holder needs to have a discussion with you because it's a private property, and I just say some of the works, if you build it in the same way, you may have the same problem again. There may be need for, I think, I see there's a need for flood proofing. Your basement is at the same level as grade. So we need to really have a discussion on flood proofing, or using flood proofing. The ministry might take some of the work, but I'm saying I'm not buying the ministry. I'm not a chief accountant. I'm not a PS. But recommendations, I would recommend that you need to have flood proofing, and we can look at that from the initiatives from our side and to recommend them. Yes. Okay, so there's a gentleman here that was and then Mwanza, and a guy in the back. All right. Okay. So let's go. Just remember, he wants to make a thing about the comment about the road. But since persons have their hand up, right? We come back to it. Okay? Yes, sir.
Hello. Michael Trotman, Bridge Supermarket. I don't want to point any fingers or anything, but I'm hearing debris still left in wells 2 months or 3 months after the event. Before the event, in the watercourse behind the supermarket, the ministry had come and cleared that area, which they do a couple of times a year, maybe once a year. The debris had been piled up in a huge pile, including refrigerators and stoves, and left for months. Not for weeks, for months. After the event, those fridges were gone. A lot of debris was gone. And I'm sure a lot of that, I'm not an engineer and I didn't walk the watercourse like many of you did, but I'm sure a lot of those appliances contribute to blocking the watercourse, which then prevented the water from escaping. Back in 1995, when you talked about that flood, pigs came down. There was a woman trapped in a car there, and many of you may remember Lindry, who actually went into the water and rescued that lady. He was a hero of the area for the time. Unfortunately, he's gone. Subsequently, the government purchased and acquired land from us and created that watercourse. And since then, we have not had this type of event. We have had significant flood issues or significant waterfall issues where you could not get out of the yard for time to time, but that water ran off beautifully because the watercourse was clear. And I think the big challenge, as we're hearing, is that a lot of the debris is not, there's not a proper maintenance structure in place. One arm of government will come and pile the debris out, and it will stay for months until somebody decides to come and move it. And unless that debris is moved, it creates this problem. If the watercourse was left with all the grass and so on, the water would have just rushed off because it would have been in the ground. And I think that is one of the issues we have to look. And I'm hearing constantly about wells still inundated with debris. And that's the challenge. We have not cleared that debris.
I hear you, but the reality of the situation is that resources that we have, the resources that we have are limited. We are stretched right now. We know we don't only service the St. George North area, but we service the entire island. But since that,
there is still debris in the drain there that is left. There's a whole set of marl that's there and another flood issue. You're just going to rush that down into the culvert again.
yeah, we will look into having that dealt with. Right. But just understand that we are stretched. We will try to work with you. It is a challenge. Okay.
Let me get back to the issue of wells. We have a challenge in the country that we cannot overcome immediately in regard to wells. When I joined I said once in drainage. In the late 90s, we used to have as many as 23 well contractors. Today, and all 20 of them will be working. The work and the money was provided, and the rate at which we're working, we have supplementary back to finance and got more money. And Mr. Bryce want me to tell you is that today, how many contracts you have? You have 24. And if you got 50% performance, you got a lot. We lost a number of, you know, for Barbadians taking up work in cleaning wells. Even in the 2000, 2010, contractors got permission to bring persons from St. Vincent and St. Lucia. It was regular. You come, you sign off, you go to immigration, and it got them to come in. We're not getting that. The way we construct our wells, we have 5,000 wells in our inventory, and we still have more. We have about more than half the island surveyed already. Won't say technology, so we can go and buy a truck and vat the wells, but the method for vatting is expensive, very expensive. 6, 7, 8 times the method for traditional method cleaning. And not every a truck can get close to those wells. That provides a challenge. I said, we've tried in ministry to get persons, even on contract, to move towards that approach. So cleaning our own wells is one thing, but the issue here is really to get wells clean to the, we said 10 meter that minimum, because we don't want to create an environmental problem in some areas. A number of the areas, and I probably don't want to stay long, but the issue, someone said, well, why don't you use some ore quarries? They just hit me and I didn't respond to that. It is a flood mitigation solution, a flood prevention solution. It is not a potable water quality solution. It is not. So we have to weigh those situations. Other countries, particularly in Asia, speak about the communities, about living with water. What they're talking about is providing those safe areas of water courses, protecting them, and know that water's going to flow in them. Yeah? Or challenge in shower bridges that you have two water courses emptying on the road. You have the one from Mr. Parson quarry. We filled that because we had to find a place to put the asbestos. An environmental problem we had to solve that could have been used for flood mitigation. But you have those cases of tossing up, you know, but we'll find solutions. And the problem at Rowe is that 200 plus meters of road between the shop where the two quarries come out on the opposite side and on the road that people use. If you had to acquire land and say, look, we require a gas station, require to market and require a water course, we can safely take you off the road. That's a major investment, right, to acquire that land, those lands. So the options will come back to you when we get the study, we start the study. But I think as much as response to the maintenance in terms of, we relied a lot on using suck wells for disposing water, conveying it to the well, throwing it in the well and it gone, right? These kind of events require something else and we move towards that. I should say too that we also created some small detention ponds at, I think it was Glean number 4, the one by the, where the shops are, the small commercial area in the back of there. The course, if you look by the primary school and you're looking straight up the gap, there's a gap that comes straight to it, but up in the end, water comes off the cattle farm or the farm. There's a water course that comes up in for walkers. I remember the Glebe number 5 or number 4 was the Glebe. We had created a small detention pond to hold water to that well. We also went on Walker's Plantation Road on both sides to do some work. But these detention ponds we've done need to be extremely large, or many of them. Thank you. Those more ones there? I think the gentleman had them more ones there.
Yes, sir. My name is Philip Edwards. I live in Rones Park, North.
Edwards?
Philip Edwards.
Okay.
Spelled the right way, with one L. Biblical. I've lived in Rones Park for approximately 40 years, and I have been through this same issue 3 times. The last one before this was about 08, I think it was, 2008, and then the one in 95, down here at Charles Road Bridge. The issue with water, flooding in Barbados, is water management. Flat. When you had the sugar industry going on, all the estates, every well was cleaned every year. And where did that water go? In the aquifers. It didn't flood out nobody anywhere down the road. Okay? And just up from us, there's a fetch of 18 acres, which is a part of France, it's just a part. Behind that is all the moonshine. And all that comes down, it comes down onto the field. And it comes in like a funnel. Mr. Miller's been to my home. You've seen, went around with me and my wife and I. And showed him all the channels and the different things and so on. And the thing is that a lot of things that we found, again, were all the wells choked, passages, cut off. People change bill walls here and stuff like that. But my personal concern is that I would like to help to build back my wall. I had things in my garden that people found 3 houses down further down the drain. Okay, I don't really have an issue with getting the wall repaired, but I'm just saying this: it needs to be controlled. The thing you said about digging little quarries, or well, not quarries, but little dams, making little dams, pool areas, that I think is the way to go. And we need to get the wells and all the drains set up properly. Okay? Regarding records of rainfall. I set up a chat 2.5 years ago called Rain Readers. I have over 60 members on it, of which he's one, Mr. Miller, recently just...
Mr. Bright. Mr. Bright.
Mr. Price, sorry, Price. Mr. Price is on it. And we have people all over the island, the whole island. So if that could help in any way, you can either contact me or him. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mwanza?
Oh, good afternoon. My name is John Mwanza. I know we talked about the gullies as bringing water to Charles Rowe Bridge. But we didn't mention the 2 roads, Flat Rock to Charles Rowe Bridge, Golden Ridge to Charles Rowe Bridge. We cannot solve the drainage problem at Charles Rowe Bridge by looking at this area only. We have to look at going upstream and reducing the amount of water that is coming down. If you look at the road going to Golden Ridge, when it rains heavily, within about 15 minutes of raining, it will be flooding here by the St. Because the road has not a single takeoff point, which is reducing the amount of water coming down. The same thing happens on Flat Rock. I've seen 8 inches of water on the road. So, and Charles, you know that you resolved the flooding at Sunset Crest. How was that resolved? Check dams. And the type of check dams that they built in the gullies are the type that can be built by the communities. No, but we live here. We live here. And as much as we're looking at the studies that are going to be done, if we walk through the gullies, it will be very easy to identify locations where you could build simple check dams across the gully so that the water that is coming in will pond in the gully and then it will infiltrate into the ground. The excess will come over, but it will be reduced. You don't get flooding anymore on Constitution River. Why? Because of Rayside Quarry. Rayside Quarry receives all the water that comes down from Jack in the Box and all the tributaries, Prout, Stony Gully, all that when it ends up in the quarry at Rayside, it is ponded, like you mentioned, the Carl Williams Gully. So the excess water that used to flow down past the Waterford Bridge to the back of the Glendale prison to come into the Constitution River, that doesn't get there anymore. So there are some solutions that MTW can deal with, which are not that expensive, and I'm sure some of the business here would be glad to sponsor 1 or 2 of those check dams to be built by the communities. I heard about cleaning the gullies, and right now there's a truck excavator by Airy Hill. When you enter Airy Hill, there's a bottom, and there's a gully that comes to the footbridge. I saw the truck excavator and asked myself, what are they doing here? Because if the intention is to clean the gully, you are not solving the Charles Rowe Bridge flooding. You are contributing to the Charles Rowe Bridge flooding, because that water is going to flow much quicker when you have debris in the gully, it slows down the water flow. Just next to that, where the excavator is parked now, is a drainage well and a box drain. 2 years ago, twice we couldn't enter Airy Hill because it was flooded. And it was flooded because the debris covered the grill, so the water could not enter the sack well, the drainage well. We took it upon ourselves as the community, and we went and removed the debris. And last year, we didn't get any flooding. The year before, we didn't get any flooding. But right now, in that gully, is a lot of debris which is almost covering up the entrance, the grill to the drainage well. So if that is not cleaned, either by us as a community or by MTW, next year we'll get a similar problem where we won't be able, this year, sorry, when the rainy season starts, we won't be able to go into our areas. The best time to clean the gullies, if you want to clean them, is now when we are getting some of the rain falling, because the rain that is falling now will help vegetation grow back before the next rainy season starts, and that will mitigate the flooding. It looks very nice. You could walk through. I'm a hiker, so I enjoy walking through there. But as far as flooding is concerned, you are worsening the problem here. Unless you take the advantage, having cleared it, and it is flat and drivable, you could get materials in there and do a check dam. And you could start there as one of the first points to stop the amount of water that is coming here, because that gully is coming when you pass the entrance to Rowan's, where Tony Marshall is. There's some grills in the road there. Yeah, so that water is coming through the grills on the road, coming down through the gully, and coming by Airy Hill. So if you are able to put a check dam there, you don't need more than 6 feet. And the gully itself is not more than 30 feet wide. You contribute to solving the problem. But the solution has to start from going upstream and reducing the amount of water that is coming down here. You could clean these every year and you still get flooding, because the amount of water that is collecting from upstream will still keep coming. If you look on the right side here, when you're going down, there's a drainage well there. What will make the water turn around and go into that drainage well? It's going downhill. It will continue downhill to the bridge. So unless a structure is constructed that will induce the water to turn instead of going straight down, that well there is serving no purpose.
Well, not really. I think
Hi, good evening. Deal Jessamy, Airy Hill. Monza pretty much said what it was really want to say. You got to tackle this problem upstream. So, this gully starting all the way from up Moonshine and coming down. Over years, you got erosion taking place. So some of the mouths of the well, the water ain't going in the mouth because erosion take place and the water bypassing the wells. Along that gully in particular, I know if some rest they have some check dams that the guys built years ago where they actually dug wells horizontally into the wall. I went out about 70 feet out, about 6 feet high roughly. I have never seen on those wells, on those check dams clean yet. Some of them full right to the brim. Some that I used to go in and play before, full right to the brim. So water bypassing them. What they did, the debris that came out of the check dam, of the well, when they further horizontally, they built up at the mouth to stop the water from passing. So going back to what Monzo said, building the dam. So that act as a dam. So when the water comes down, it would channel in there, fill up, and then come over. And they have a series of those in the gully. My proposal is what Monzo was saying, to build additional wells in the gully to hold the water, reduce it coming downstream. If you do that through a series of these gullies here, you won't have the problem in the bridge. You're all addressing the end product or the middle product, which is Charles Rowe Bridge. That is a result of the water coming down. Tackle it up top at different intervals, slow it down, and it shouldn't get there with that speed and that fast. Let's see what I was going to say. But pretty much what Monzo was saying is what yeah, pretty much what Monzo said is what I was saying here. So that's my 2 cents worth.
I think we being misunderstood. The study that we are going to be doing is not addressing only the Charles Rowe Bridge area. It's going to look at the whole watershed coming from upstream. Addressing all the gully, the water courses, the gullies, and the 2 roads, the roads coming from the Glebe, from Newberry straight down, and the road from Flat Rock. Because I realized, because me and Charles had a conversation just now, that there's no takeoff point on the Glebe Road, nor on the Flat Rock Road. There's one point at Erie Hill, but after Erie Hill, there's no takeoff point coming down to Charles Rowe Bridge. So what that study is going to do is address that. So it's going to be a series of detention ponds, retention ponds, check dams. But the only thing is if the land that is the geology of the land that is to be used and the land use, basically. So that is not just trying to address the problem in Charles Rowe Bridge, it's looking at upstream and addressing the problem upstream coming down. Because we know we can't address the problem in Charles Rowe Bridge. That's impossible.
All right, I know that the cutoff time we had said was 5 p.m., but I noticed there are still a number of hands, and I've just asked the videographer to bear with us to go a little beyond the 5 o'clock since we started late. So I think there's a lady over here who wants to make an input. I also recognize Mr. Brian Murray. I think you wanted to make an input. You care to give it? I know he has his hand, so we'll come after him. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Yearwood. I live direct in Charles Rowe Bridge. So I live direct where all the problems and the troubles is. All right, I just want to say some things that I think could be done down there that can help. Because we're living is next to the well that we should call the Cane Well. Because that well is the well that is hold everything. That's the well that is work. When it can't work, it's try to throw the water over the other side of the road. All right? One of the number one problems that I see down there is that this well needs cleaning urgently. Urgently, Mr. Yearwood. This well needs cleaning. It was cleaned last year, but the guys had some challenges, all right, with cleaning the well. So they never got through with cleaning the well, all right? Bear this in mind that this well is the number one well in this area opposite your fact. So the fellows never got through with cleaning the well. All right, so I believe that it wants cleaning as urgent as possible. they had some challenges with it. All right, I hear this guy here say that he had some fridges behind he too, which is true. And some of the fridges disappear. But I got a photo here that can show you where some of the fridges went. Somebody can pass them, and the panels are pass them around. You can see directly where the fridges end up. Get the panel and the panel see. Yeah, you can pass around. As I tell you, I just live, the church is there, and I live next. So I live next to the well.
Cultural practices.
You see, Miss, what's his name again? You see where one of the fridges end up? One of the fridges end up right in front of the spurlet pipes and block both of them. That caused the most trouble in Rowe Bridge. Yeah, no, the fridges, the drainage unit removed the fridge from there. So then the water, that caused the water to actually back up by me almost 5 feet. Yeah, that caused the water to back up there. But one solution I think that you can do there too, right, is that you can put a grill in front of that spurlet pipe. The spurlet pipe is definitely too small. It can't take the load. And these days, this water is different. This weather pattern is different now. So when they spurlet pipes that cross the road, them need changing. And you can put a grill that no more fridges can end up blocking that there again. All right, I had 2 small children there that almost got carried away. It's a good thing the next door nearby had an excavator there. All right, and he came with the excavator and take them from there. Another problem there that the water shouldn't be able to left the water, right? The water coming from us all far back as Newberry. The water coming down that hill, coming into Rowe Bridge, and it leading straight into the cane well. The water going in the cane well, then looking, the water then raising and coming back over to go through the canal. That's wrong. The well already can capacity. The well can capacity to hold water. No water ain't coming from so far, and the drain leading into the well. Still the drain leading into the well, it should be leaning out. It only want raising to the front. Some of these things is simple. It only want raising to the front of the well and push the water over to the gateway outside. And that can't take no $1 million to do. Either $1,000. What's a concrete raising there? And push that over the other side. And as I see it, the need to put a grill in there, the need to get back into that well and clean that well as urgent and put a grill cross. Because the fridge that heat here disappear, it disappear and block that. And you know how much problems that cause? That caused so much problems in Rowe Bridge. Is one of the main things. Yeah, that was one of the main, very main. I was on hand to take the picture, see what's going on with the well. And bear in mind, I used to clean wells as well too, you know. And I went down that same well already. So when the fellas go over by that well, I will go across and make sure to go down there safe, because you just can't touch the size of the well. The well is a big round well. You cannot touch. So when you're going on that well, you got a rope next to it, so that the gravity can't take you and spin you around, and nothing happen there with nobody. So I'm say, yeah, well, you need to get you guys or get your contractors back in our well again. It's a main well. It's the well that holding everything down there. All right? So thanks a lot.
All right, just a moment. All right, I know there are several other persons who, again, as I said before, have their hands up, but we have the honor of having the director, am I correct? Acting director, sorry, of the Barbados Meteorological Services. And I'm sure that he can probably share a lot of information, not necessarily about the topography of the Charles Rowe Bridge area and so on, but as it relates to rainfall and weather and so on. So I'm going to turn the microphone at this point in time over to the goodly gentleman.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Now, I have been a resident here since 1998, so I have seen my share of flooding and... Oh, okay. Okay, everyone, see that I'm Senate Stage, so I go and tell you what my experience is since I have moved up to St. George in 1988. I came from St. Andrews, so I know what flooding is all about. So from listening to all of the comments, I think one of the issues here is that you have to get the water out before. So it's a case of you're getting more water coming into Charles Rowe Bridge than it going out. And as was mentioned before, what needs to be done is that you got to build check dams upstream so that you can take some of the water. Because what I've noticed is that road out there in particular, obviously there's no way for the water to go, so it's going to come straight down for all down by Newbury, because I play dominoes up in Newbury, and I've seen on occasions where I've gone to play dominoes and they had a shower at night and the water came from all at Newbury. So that what needs to be done is that you have to get some of the water off the road from the higher elevations in particular. I think you mentioned Mayfield and Moonshine and so on, right? Now, the thing about it is that it has to be a collaborative effort, but having these check dams and wells, how the wells clean and so on, because the thing about it is that obviously we are very on par in terms of setting out the flash flood watches and warning and so on. But if nothing's done about the drainage, or we try to improve the drainage, then you get flooding all the time. It's like you buy a 2-inch pipe and you want to do a drain and compare it to a 4-inch. A 4-inch will have a better accommodation than a 2-inch. You can't. Now, what I've seen down there last year, because I got videos on my YouTube channel, right, and I would say that is probably one of the worst flooding I have ever seen in my life. I've seen it before in 2008, and I think we had another one in 2024 too. But last year it has been worse. I've never seen water like that. Honestly, I've never seen it. With cars being pushed from one side of the gas station car park to the next. The fence at the bridge supermarket being pushed down. And I must admit that I picked up 2 flat tires that night. Yeah, 2 flat tires within 2 days because of all the debris being washed down, so. And the other thing about it too is that I think that when it comes to drivers, they have to use their common sense. They have to know the vehicles. So, because if you see a set of water about 6 to 8 inches or 10 inches high, you should not attempt to drive in it, because 6 inches alone can actually make the car hydroplane. Because even myself, when I was down there watching the action, that night, I had to be very careful in walking across the road from the bridge to the market to Shafet and back, because I didn't want to see up front, what the actual problem was. And another thing too that you have to remember is that you have a gully behind the supermarket going behind all the couples back up to Mayfield. And that, and that also can contribute to the amount of flooding that comes down. So you have to control the water upstream. That's the first thing you have to do. And the best time is now that it's the dry season. The best thing to do is now, so that by the time the hurricane season comes now, then you'll not have such a problem. And another thing I noticed too in the gullies too is that I noticed a lot of garbage, and something has to be done with that also. Yes. Right, so finish off, the BMS, we have a website, barbadosweather.org. You can go on it on your phone. We also have an app called BMS Insight that you can download on a smartphone. so that you will get our watches and warnings: flash flood, tropical storm, hurricane, dust haze, marine, and all of that. For further information, you can call the office at 535-0016 to 0025, and we will, give you directions on how to, download the app and so on. Thank you for your attention.
Good evening. I'd just like to ask one question. Assuming the volume of water that came down in Charles Rowe Bridge was allowed to go underground, do we have the capacity underground to take that? Okay, so if all were allowed to go down, it could be stored underground. Okay. It's just my question. Thank you.
That's where we get our drinking water from.
Significant point. We mentioned the issue of water resources. The average well digger digs the well until they find what the Belgians call a sack. And that sack may go 20 feet, or it could go all the way down to the water table. So when that rainfall comes in, picks up the garbage, and it goes into the drainage well or the sack well, where is it ending up? In the aquifer. So we ourselves can contribute to protecting our groundwater. Also, we could also contribute to reducing flooding. What happens when it rains is that the water will hit the ground, and if it's open ground, it will filter down through the soil and go down to the aquifer. If it hits the concrete around your house, or it hits the Baba Green, or your roof, it can go down into the ground. So what does it do? It runs on the surface. So when we beautify our houses and build all the concrete that we're building because we don't want to cut the grass, what are we doing? We are reducing the area that can be used for the water to go into the ground to recharge the aquifer. And so when that water doesn't go down, it is going to run on the ground, and it will cause flooding. And with the projections and the changes in rainfall now, what you're seeing is that the rainfall is falling over a short period of time, but very intense. Because it's falling over a short period of time and it's very intense, it doesn't have the time to filter down through the soil. So we are going to be seeing more incidents of increased runoff. And unless we build the check dams, we build the drainage wells, and we reduce the amount of concrete around the houses and cut some of the water off of the roof, we will be contributing to flooding, and will be contributing to the reduced amount of water in the aquifer that we could use for drinking, farming, and whatever other purposes. So everybody should take a part in managing the water resources. And when you go home today, look around the house and see what it is you could do to contribute to reducing the amount of water that is running off of your property onto the road, and we give it to MTW to deal with.
I just have a quick announcement to make. The driver of J3046, 3046, you're blocking someone that needs to leave right away, so if you can kindly oblige them. Thank you. There was someone who was scheduled to speak earlier. One moment, sir. The gentleman over here.
Just one more. I just want to add on to what Dr. Wanderson was saying. Also adding on to that is, well, looking at this photograph with the fridge stuck in the drain. How did this fridge get into the drain? How did this fridge get into the gully? Somebody had to put it there. Now, like Dr. Wanza, I'm also a hiker. Huh? Yeah, well, I get to the point here. I'm also a hiker. So I walk the gullies of Barbados. And I could tell you, the things that you find in the gully are not normal. You find car parts, fridges, old washing machines, tires. They get there because somebody put them there. And that also contributes to the flooding problem. So, as Dr. Wadsworth was saying, help us, basically.
Hi, I'm Ignaborn. I live in Charlbridge all my life. And I'm just going to make a point to how we can help curb the flooding. Over the years, Charlbridge had few houses. Rons Park had a couple. The Valley. Since then, it's about 80% houses. Imagine a roof producing at least about 1,500 gallons in 10 minutes. If through town country planning, the house owners, and you put a 1,500 gallon can to catch some of this water, you're gonna reduce a lot of the water flowing into the gullies, flooding the area. That's one of the main things that, besides the dams, I think that you need to put dams all along, not only just the start, but right along the course, obstacle, because when you dig a gully, you clear the whole gully. You make the whole course for the water to flow right down to Charlbridge in 15 minutes. And then you can't take the water from Charlbridge because then you're putting it somewhere else. So you need to control the water coming into all the gullies. This is not only Charlbridge, all over the island. And then if we look at the same harvesting of the water in homes, you're gonna cut down this problem tremendously. Thanks.
All right. Just bear with me one moment. There is a gentleman here who lives in the Flat Rock area. And we really need to hear his input because for a number of years, he lives in the Flat Rock development, new development. For a number of years, he has been suffering, if I can put it that way. And we have some photos, if I can get Marley to put up those two photos. I think you should hear Mr. Ainsley Gill.
Okay, time the pictures come. I just, Ainsley Gill from the new development in the Flat Rock local salt area. And I think I know this face. I would have spoke to you 8 years ago. And I thought that you had retired. I thought so, because when I went back to the drainage unit, I saw somebody else. And up to this day, we have not received any assistance from the drainage unit yet, in 8 years. Since the park was built or constructed in Flat Rock, we in the development have had a lot of issues. The national park, I call it national park, in the Flat Rock local salt area. There's the NCC or Refight Barbados, I think it is, that would have built that park. They haven't water. When you look at the drawing, this is the park right here. All this is the park. And water coming out the park and coming right on the main road and coming into the development right here. I live at this area here. And the drainage unit have a well, or the government have a well, right in my driveway. I don't know what kind of engineer would have constructed a development and put a well right in the middle where they know that eventually when you live in the house, you will put a driveway. Right? Now there's a cul-de-sac in the area, and I work in construction for over 6.5 years at Riverside Construction. We would normally put a well at the end of the cul-de-sac. So when the water comes, it runs into the well, and if it overflows, it runs over into the campground that is there. Now we have the well in the middle of the development, and the water comes in back like this into the well, which is right on my land. And when that little drain that you all put, the metal part, if no one is formed to clear those drains, the water comes right over my driveway. And sometimes I barely get it from coming into the house about this. And we were complaining about this for a long, long time. If you could move on, you will see some other pictures. Look at the water there. Right? This is all the water in the road. And this is the well right here. And this well is supposed to be 25 or 30 feet deep. Somebody put a tape down the side. And that's what they tell us. All this is water. So we can't get in. None of the houses here in this area can't get in because of all this water. And every time outside setups and the rain comes, somebody have to run home. I have to leave my job to run home to make sure that that drain clear to avoid this. But this happened at night time, close into the night. And we have been receiving this. Now, I have some other pictures. I don't know if you can move on, if you have any more. But I can share the other pictures with you all. That water comes out of the park. And I lived there a long time before the development bill. And I'm saying that the road was reconstructed. And the water that comes from Locosol, campground used to, I'm looking at coming down the hill from Locosol. There used to be a curve like this. And the water used to run over in the curve into a well. Now, the house that was built at the end of the development has built a wall around that well, enclosing that well now and stopping the water from, and because the road has been paved again, the road is higher. So the water don't run that way anymore. The water keeps running on the main. And the development driveway is like this now to the road from the main road is this, and the driveway is this. So all the water that used to go down through Flat Rock, right back down to before you turn up to the church, it used to go through, down the drain, go all down to Low Stair. Now all that water, it still is going down the main road, is coming into the development and causing this. So we need to look at the water coming from Locosol Plantation campground, as well as coming out of the park, the national park that is built there. Right, so a lot of water is coming down there, and as I say, 8 years ago we were asking for help from the government to look at the situation, and I think that I know government don't want to reconstruct that road, but I believe they need to reconstruct that road and put it, instead of the water coming like this, send the water straight, because below is a campground, and it will not disturb anybody. And I think that's the issue that we're having in the Flat Rock area that needs urgent attention.
Yeah. I remember the issue. As you spoke, I remember the officer reporting of a mechanic or somebody doing something in the area.
That came after.
You had some
a little after,
issue.
yeah, mechanic came, yeah.
Because I think he
was running the oil in the also in the drain.
Where there's a mechanic close by, and the officer went a number of times, and there's a line of oil in the curb, in the slipper.
That's correct.
And the concern was not what was important is that you had the well lined with oil. So when you talk about 8 years, just remember the issue now. Look, we go back to cultural practices, right? You investigate an issue, and people can tell you chapter and verse 15 years to today. And some people, and mostly, unfortunately, you say, maybe we're weak in it, in that. And only last week someone said they were looking for a number for a government agency in the telephone directory. And I remind the person that you also have Digicel, and there's no number necessarily for those numbers. You may have to go on a electronic directory. There's an aged person. Cultural practices, and I'm not beating anyone, I'm saying I see it. I may have family that don't live around me that might do it as well. Always have friends and families around the country. Cultural practices play a significant contribution to flooding. Yeah? And as a youngster in scouting, we went around and do a number of initiatives, yeah, things, but we are where we are today, yeah, but we can still make a dent where we build check dams, yes, but we talk about access. We're going to start work on lands, it looks like a water course, and someone comes and say, hey, this is my land, you got to acquire it. There are going to be issues, yeah? So I revisit that again because really the issue for, now I think of it in mitigation head only, is that we can do work upstream. And I didn't speak about it even, remember once I spoke about doing work in this season. We just got approval for the construction of 11 detention ponds across the island. And someone spoke earlier about, oh, Charo Bridge is not a tourist town, not for tourists. I want to remind the person, right, and I'm chastising here, right, that if the person really lives in Charo Bridge, they'll see tourist buses passing through Charo Bridge. And I take homage to it. I'm going to have a tea, to a tea for that person, because where my work is not a function of tourists or Barbadian. It's about what is rational and reasonable. Yeah? We have gone to Spike Stone because you live in Charo Bridge, but I see a bus passing through here. I'm going to Belle Plaine, to Allen School. I see a bus passing from this area. I'm going to on the west coast. So it's okay to live in this area, but I'm sure you have family and friends. And even when you're going on a picnic, you're passing through Whole Town. We have to look. Whole Town is the second largest watershed on the west coast. And if you talk about flooding, if you have a larger area, you're going to have more water runoff. Yeah? So the prioritization for work, we've got work for approving this by the end of March for exchange. Here we are. Exchange. Yeah? So we have identified, and this has been on the marker for a while. The small area here have about 18 inches or so of water from exchange, right? So one build a chicken pen or some animal pen on the back of somebody's property, held us up. So while we speak, there are challenges we go up there on, yeah? Officers in the ministry, I'm old enough and I know to go and talk to somebody on the block. But we have people who go and come back and say, boss, I ain't getting out there, the fellas, they smoking marijuana. Now, I had an impact on the marijuana. I'm speaking this issue because these are issues that not for us to, as a community, have to deal with and have to address. I once visited a site in another parish, collecting data and surveying the area. And I was near a block. And I went to the guys and talked to them what I was doing, because you don't walk in the area and just start doing work. I called my wife about 5:36 and told her I'm not coming home yet. I'm going to lock my car and I can take a rest. My head, I studied in Jamaica. What these guys are smoking here, it could be another DNA marijuana. But I'm saying to you as parents and person who may use, and I have no issue with it. If you come to me and I talk about it, it impacts us on the road in our work. We have lost a number of our workers through age and retiring. I'm at that point just now. We're down 40% of our staff. And how we do it? We bring contract workers. Yes, people say, but workers don't work. We bring contract workers and they're working some better because they're younger. Right? But we ask and begging people to come outside of the office, right? I press here, I'm going to say it because if somebody talking to me, I can resign and go. I am serious about this issue in this country. They come to work one morning outside the office and they're smoking. And I ask the guys, you know, to boil an egg? We used to go work with a jam sandwich and some porridge. But I'm saying the marijuana is impacting on work
And when we have this as managers and supervisors of staff, we have to take I take a decision. If they come with it and I smell it, I can't give them a truck. I can't give them a van to drive. And you who have children and family and cousins who give them to drive, take care. Because if it's one thing you learn from it, if not flooding, it's those issues that impact flooding and flood management, flood maintenance. How could I give someone a truck and a van to drive the people who smell like marijuana or smell like something like marijuana, right? He is worse than a guy with a gun who dispose of 6 bullets and kill 6 persons. He may have 8 in the van and 8 cadavers we're going for. So as we speak about flood management and flooding light, the other side of the coin is that when you're dealing with staff and the average Joe who comes for a labor job and a supervisor job, we see it. And those who are in private don't hide. It must be the same thing out there with you. They all come from the same community. Yeah? I'm glad that it just raised its thought in my head, because it's something we have to deal with, and our response to flood management. When you have the fire officers going out, and then someone said, boss, the flood I want a $10, $20 again, but I give you $20 to help us. And I didn't know he was smoking. I might have to face the corner. Because if I, as a public officer, try to engage community for help and not understanding his profile and his character, I may have contributed to his death. Thank you.
Mr. Gay.
What I was going to say is already subsumed in the discussion that you've heard. I want to talk briefly about responsibility. And I'm doing this from a perspective of the Ministry of Environment and Health. Responsibility. 1, I would like the MTW to have the sweepings and the weedings along the road removed sooner to stop the wash away by storm water. And the last point, which has already been mentioned, is the fact that we have responsibility. We all have responsibility. And those fridges, beds, and everything else, our refuse, end up in the water course. We have a responsibility. Let's do our best to keep our waste out of the water course.
As we close, I just want to concur on what you said. Most of the flooding that occurred in Barbados through garbage. We normally go into the New Orleans and that area, and the problem is the outflow is full of PET bottles. And once you clear the garbage, the water goes to the outflow. Nobody is trapped in their houses anymore. So I'm saying that each of us have a responsibility, including myself. So we recognize that if each of us started water harvesting, 1,500 gallons per person, for the 4 people in this room, 65,000 gallons saved, which could be used for irrigation or washing our cars. We all have a contribution. The same way the garbage, because I watched my mom home, a house came down, a small shed came down, washing machine, fridges came down, lots of stuff came down. I have video home, I didn't bring any, of all these things coming down and blocking the roadway. It also makes my life a little bit, my risk a little bit more dangerous, trying to save someone's life in all of that debris going out there and stuff like that. Because you would have recognized there was a lady who was trapped by the stop sign by the gas station. And some people say that crazy man with the umbrella risking for this life. That crazy man was me in my civilian clothes. No boots, nothing special, just a pair of Crocs on, and I just jumped to my vehicle and went for the lady. Yeah? But in that whole process, walking through the water, I got struck on my foot more than once. Luckily, I was walking and anticipating that I would get hit by some debris or something. Hit, but I managed to just move and keep moving to save the girl's life she was starting to get tired holding on to the rail. But each of us have a part to play. And I pray that each of us would actually play our part. So number one is our garbage. Small PET bottles, paper, plastic, but most of all, the fridges in the stove that end up in the well, that now caused the guy to lost his life. We all have a part to play. So let's play our part. Yeah, I saw it. I saw it. I saw it. It's about 10 by 10. Yeah, it was about 10 by 10. I watched it. My wife have it on video, watching going down the road. But there were some cars lost as well, and they all end up in the same area. Lights on, still parked up. Yeah. So we all have a part to play. So let's play our part. Yeah.
Sorry? You're not hearing me? You can hear me well now? Awesome. So I was saying that we had a very insightful conversation. And to close off our meeting, I will now invite Ms. Sade Griffith to give a vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the time that you've taken today. And I'll start our vote of thanks. So on behalf of the St. George North DEO, I would like to express our gratitude to everyone who made this evening a success. First and foremost, a sincere thank you to our specially invited guests, our panel, Mr. Paul Bentham, representative of Ms. Toni Moore, parliamentary representative for the St. George North, Mr. Charles Yearwood, Senior Technical Officer for the Projects Division at Ministry of Transport, Works and Water Resources, Mr. Andre Bryce, Senior Technical Officer for the Drainage at MTW, Mr. Roger Bourne, Station Officer at the Barbados Fire Service. I would also like to thank our chairperson, Ms. Ashley Green, for presiding over this meeting. To my colleagues and all the participants, thank you for your engagement, your active questions, and all the concerns that you shared. Without your contributions and the residents of St. George, we wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you for your meaningful input. Finally, a word of thanks to the Department of Emergency Management, the Community Development Department, Mr. James Clark, Mr. Jacoby Paris, Ms. Anita Yard, and all of our organizing team for the seamless arrangements. A special thank you to our fellow DEOs that aren't in this district, outside of St. George North and South, and we appreciate you for your support to the community outreach, and we look forward to your continued support. With that, I conclude this vote of thanks, and I wish everyone a wonderful day. Have a safe evening, and we invite you to some refreshments in the back. We'll start with the panel for the refreshments. And also, if you guys have any concerns that you didn't have met during the session, please contact the DEO chairperson, Ricky. His number is 251-1944. So 252-1944. So if you want to ask any other questions, feel free to contact Ricky. Thank you guys. Have a good evening.